Going on, everyone? John Matrix here. Hope you're all having yourselves a wonderful day. Today we're going to be jumping into the 40k universe here with a requested video from one of my YouTube members. This is Warhammer 40k, the start of the Great Crusade by Wizards and Warriors. Warhammer 40k Lore. Links will be down below as always in the description, info section, whatever you want to call it, to the Wizards and Warriors channel and to the original video here. Without my commentary and reaction, please do me a favor. Click those links if you enjoy this video as we go through it. Go over there and give it a like, and check out the Wizards and Warriors channel and see if you enjoy his content. And if you do, throw the man up a sub. If you would like to join us when we do these reactions live, there is a join button underneath the video, as well as a link in the description to the YouTube membership benefits and tiers that I offer. You can get early access to videos, you can get priority in any kind of reaction requests you want me to do. There is a sub Discord channel. The Discord is open for everyone if you wanted to join, but there is a channel specifically for members, etc., etc. So take a look at that, see if you have any interest and want to take your sport to the next level. But with all that said, let's go ahead and jump into this video. Again, this is Warhammer 40k, start of the Great Crusade, Warhammer 40k lore. There we go. That's a little loud. And down just a tad. There we go. Wizards and Warriors.
A brutal galaxy where fanatically religious humanity wages an unending war, where terrifying aliens seek the destruction of life, where another plane of reality exists, one filled with bloodthirsty demons and ruthless gods actively seeking the doom of all who enter it, where magic and other physics-defying phenomena exist. Upon seeing all of this, it is hard to imagine that the setting of Warhammer 40k is a grimdark manifestation of the far future of our very own timeline. To understand how technology-focused humanity found itself in such a destructive future, one must delve into its roots. Welcome to our series on Warhammer 40k and the Horus Heresy, explaining the origins of the Imperium and Chaos.
Gotcha.
This first video will explore how humanity conquered.
Now, for the most part, I've covered a lot of this in different videos, and I would say I'm pretty well knowledged in most things about this era. I still am going through the Horus Heresy books. I haven't really had the time to keep reading them. I've just been so busy lately and trying to do so many things, but I definitely still plan on continuing with the books. So I'm interested to see his take, I guess, on it and what other kind of tidbits of information that I might not know. That's the thing that I like about doing different videos from different people on, you know, similar subjects, especially in the Warhammer 40k. There's often a lot of times between them different little tidbits of information that someone might not cover that another person does, because there's really just so much lore and information in this universe that it's kind of hard to cover everything. Or maybe you're trying to cover specific things and it's hard to kind of condense it down, you know, into a video you're trying to make, etc. So eager to see what else here I might learn.
Conquered the galaxy twice. And this story is brought to you alongside another, that being our sponsor, Double Blind by J.
Well, I'm going to skip ahead of this part, but, you know, check out the man's channel. If the sponsorship is still going on for him and it has any interest for you, go check it out.
The unrelenting humanity, driven by the unrelenting need for progress and expansion, started colonizing the solar system in the third millennium.
Right.
After pushing terraforming technology to its limits, the entire solar system was colonized, and to enable further colonization, massive spaceships were created to reach other stars. This era was known as the Age of Progress, and lasted until the 15th millennium.
Okay, so we're going back like history. This is before, you know, the Imperium and the Dark Age of technology. This is like the origins. Okay, I'm down with that. This is the era. I mean, it's meant to purposely be more mysterious, but I would actually like to hear about a lot of the stories and things like that during this time period where humanity almost had kind of a Star Trek golden age era where their technology was so insane that even other alien factions really didn't want to mess with humanity because of how advanced we really were, and really most things were run by AI at the time, and humanity was able to really flourish and expand and explore all facets of existence. And so, like, I think it would be fascinating to explore this time as well at some point, just because. But I get that they intentionally want it to be mysterious because it's supposed to be that, you know, lost era of history that the Imperium is trying to rediscover. It would also be interesting at some point in time if they really do find some kind of standard what is it, STP or whatever, I can't remember, standard template construct or construct template, something like that, that really has a complete or more complete era of history in what humanity really was doing back then, that kind of like challenges the Imperium's view and morals, and just see what happens. I could almost see, you know, if that knowledge were to get out and be widespread, along with some of the technologies, another kind of civil war situation that could happen. But anyway, and I think that would also be interesting. More of a, instead of it being like the Horus Heresy with the Primarchs and Chaos, it essentially is kind of more of a civil war of, I guess, values and technological scientific progress versus, I guess, the kind of quote unquote religious zealotry, for lack of a better term, that the Imperium has for the Emperor. I feel like that would also be kind of an interesting thing to explore in the 40k universe, and it would also be interesting to see what would happen if the Primarchs return, who would be on what side of that as well, you know, with you know, progression of technology, and obviously the Primarchs know the Emperor's wishes of not wanting to be worshipped as a god, etc., etc. But anyway, let's continue with the video.
The defining factor of this era was sublight speed travel. This limiting factor meant that each star system that humans inhabited was isolated. To reach other star systems, at least a few decades were needed, with longer travel lasting entire generations. Even communication couldn't be established, as a one-way signal that traveled at light speed would reach colonies only after a few years.
Right.
The era-changing moment was the invention of warp drive, an engine that allowed entering an entirely different dimension, called the warp or immaterium, through which travel that well exceeded the speed of light was possible. Humanity soon started colonizing the entire galaxy. As fast as humanity's territory grew, so did the development of artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Automatons, called Men of Iron, helped mankind improve to unthinkable levels. This never-ending progress for the sake of progress gave name to this era, the Dark Age of Technology.
Yeah.
Humanity forgot why new technologies were made in the first place. Thought of what more can be invented or created was the only purpose driving humanity.
Huh. Kind of interesting. I didn't know that technology was so progressive and, you know, progressing so rapidly, that whole adage from Jurassic Park, you know, they never stopped to think if they should, you know. They were so obsessed with progress that they never stopped to think if they should, you know, continue along these lines, et cetera, et cetera. So that's pretty interesting.
Humanity. Many technological wonders were built. Every disease was eradicated, but so too came completely useless inventions and weapons of mass destruction. Technology achieved such unbelievable levels that the standard template constructs, computers capable of creating blueprints needed for creating basic tools and utility devices, became revered as artifacts of unfathomable worth and used to produce the highest class military equipment. All golden ages are destined to fade into twilight sooner or later, and calamity struck after 10,000 years, around the 25th millennium. The Men of Iron rebelled, starting a devastating war that almost wiped out humanity.
I'm curious if he's going to get into it or not. It's hinted at. I don't think it's ever like specifically or expressly said, but it's hinted that a lot of the AI became corrupted by chaos, and that's what started the rebellion. You know, because there's a lot of I think there's specifically a story about a Mechanica ship that is a standard template construct or whatever, and during, you know, an incursion with an Eldari or whatever, the AI on the ship essentially took over and eradicated it to safeguard itself. So it's almost like AI that were uncorrupted understand what happened and have kind of gone into hiding, so as to not be destroyed until, I guess, humanity maybe reaches kind of a point of I guess enlightenment, if you want to call it that, or understanding that AI might not necessarily be the enemy and that it was potentially corrupted by chaos and it was just another agent used by chaos to, you know, mess with humanity. And that also brings into, you know, the machine spirit that the Mechanicus worship. Is it in fact actually just AI that's on a lot of these things that they worship, or, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway.
Hundreds of billions died, and many planets were reduced to a nuclear wasteland. After this galaxy-spanning conflict ended, all usage of AI was banned, and every subsequent attempt to create one was met with instant execution.
Yeah.
All throughout human-colonized worlds, extensive warp usage began creating mutated humans, among whom were psychers, men who could draw power from the immaterium to use sorcery. Progress-oriented society saw this as another opportunity to evolve, and encouraged experimentation with these unknown powers, especially since development through AI was no longer an option. However, this was a disastrous idea. Soon, weak-minded psychers got swayed by the demons that inhabited the warp.
Yep. Started mutating and having all kinds of issues.
Possessions and wars started by power-seeking mages laid destruction upon most human worlds. These two apocalyptic-level events were enough to name the following era the Age of Strife, but soon a third source of calamity was thrown into the mix. Due to the decadence of the Eldari Empire and advanced alien species, an enormous disturbance of the immaterium
this is when
called the Warp
Slaanesh was
Storm
being
was
born.
created that made travel through the warp impossible.
Yeah, I mean, if you really think about it, humanity, like, after that, like, super long age of progress, really had a very long period of time where they were down bad, man, you know? After the dark age of technology and the rebellion of, you know, the AI, and then the age of strife happening, and then being cut off and isolated due to the warp storms from what the Eldari were doing, and then the birth of Slaanesh. Like, well, had a rough time for a long period, dude. Is it any wonder why the Emperor, you know, felt he needed to step up and kind of reunite humanity before it became destroyed, essentially, wiped itself out?
Isolating all star systems already devastated by wars and demons summoned by psychers. Few worlds remained inhabited by humans after 5 millennia of destruction, as most of them were either destroyed by aliens or the folly of humanity. One of the surviving worlds was Earth, now called Terra, and its moon Luna. There, tribes of techno-barbarians were battling for dominance.
Yep.
A man who would later be known as the Emperor of Mankind, an impossibly powerful psyker, who at this point was 38,000 years old, decided that in order to make humanity great again, he would have to claim leadership. To that end, he began the creation of a genetically modified army. First, he poured all his knowledge, skill, and effort into handcrafting the perfect DNA for a soldier. The Adeptus Custodes were unrivaled warriors. However, the time required to create one was so extensive.
I always thought the Thunder Warriors came first and then the Custodes. I thought the Thunder Warriors were kind of like the beta test, and then the Custodes were like the perfection of it, but because it took such a long time to create one, it wasn't efficient. Like, they were kind of like the perfect soldier in the Emperor's eyes, but because of the process, and I think it having to do with them having, you know, it being done when they're really young, or maybe even from before birth, you know, and it's just an extremely long process of creating a Custodes, and it's just not efficient. But they are extremely, you know, they're just under the primarchs as far as, like, I mean, I don't know if you want to say just under, but in, like, the tier of power, like, they're the next level down from a primarch, essentially.
That few of them could be created, so rather than serving as frontline infantry, they were used as personal bodyguards to the Emperor. The soon-to-be Emperor's second creation was the Thunder Warriors,
there we go,
who were capable of being mass-produced.
So I thought it was the other way
but
around.
Due to the fast manipulation of human DNA, they were short-lived,
Yeah,
mentally
they
unstable,
had a lot of genetic
and
issues.
prone to mutations. After the Emperor
The
united
process
Terra,
wasn't
he had the
perfected
Thunder
yet.
Warriors all executed. To create a large, mass-produced army, the Emperor needed a superior DNA base. To achieve that, he
Which I think... I'm trying to remember. I think was it one of the Primarchs? I don't know if it was Lionel Johnson or Alfarius. I want to say it was Alfarius. One of the Primarchs was alive and witnessed some of this. I want to say it was Alfarius. If some of the information, I'm trying to remember one of the videos from the Amber King that he did about it, which is a really great video. I want to say Alfarius is around toward the end of this and witnessed having to have the Thunder Legion, Thunder Warriors put down. So, like, I don't know. I wonder if that's always been something to me that's like, has that been in the back of their mind kind of a situation, you know, knowing that the Emperor is willing to put these, you know, he's willing to essentially like see these things as tools, and once their use is done, you know, discard them kind of a situation.
created 20 sons based on his own DNA, each one inheriting one of the Emperor's traits. They were named primarchs, and in order to enhance them, the Emperor merged warp entities with their souls. Because of this,
Which I don't know if that's something that has been specifically, you know, elaborated on, but to my understanding, and again, some of this information might be a little, you know, iffy. I don't know how true it is, whatever. I'm trying to think of the proper verbiage to use, but from various things that I've read and heard in comments on certain videos, the idea is that he might have actually captured like the soul essence of greater demons and somehow imbued them with the souls and bodies of the primarchs. And that's why they're so much more powerful. They're like not only like genetically kind of perfected, but then they also have, you know, essentially the essence of a warp demon or a greater warp demon in them that has enhanced them even further.
the Chaos Gods saw them as a threat to their existence, and
Right.
used their strength to scatter the primarchs throughout the galaxy.
I think it's even, you know, again, I don't know how much of this is true or not because there's a lot of information out there. It's even, I guess, rumored or thought of that the Emperor actually even spoke with one or multiple of the gods and potentially made a deal with them to learn how to, you know, imbue this warp essence into the Primarchs, and then somehow reneged on the deal, and that's essentially why they targeted the Primarchs and scattered them.
While they were still infants. However, not all was lost for the Emperor, for he used the Primarch's gene seed to create the Adeptus Astartes, widely known as Space Marines. 20 legions were created. Each one started 10,000 strong, but over the years increased its size 10 times. Upon reaching Mars, the first surviving human civilization was found. Mechanicum, as they called themselves, was a machine cult seeking knowledge and technology of the past. The Emperor struck a deal with them called the Treaty of
Actually,
Olympus.
cool
The Mechanicum would
vigil.
supply the newly found Imperium with supplies, machines of war, and a fleet.
I assume that's
In
Malkador.
return, they would gain access to all found technology in reclaimed Forge worlds, while remaining an autonomous part of the Imperium. The next 200 years are called the Great Crusade. The period lasted between 798 M30 and 005 M31. All human worlds were reclaimed from the Xenos, ergo aliens, or from humans, millions of whom joined the Imperial Army as Imperial Guard,
Yep.
soon becoming the primary fighting force. Not all humans were seen as friends. Many civilizations were beaten down and re-educated,
Yep.
while others were completely destroyed. During the Great Crusade, the Primarchs were found. All of them were found on human-inhabited worlds. Prior to the Emperor's arrival, almost all of them had become the leaders of their world. Each Primarch took command over the legion created from his gene seed. The first Legion of Dark Angels was led by Lionel Johnson, the third of the Emperor's children by Fulgrim, the fourth of Iron Warriors by Perturabo, the fifth of White Scars by Jagatai Khan, the sixth of Space Wolves by Leman Russ, the seventh of Imperial Fists by Rogold Dawn, eighth of Night Lords by Conrad Kurz, ninth of Blood Angels by Sanguinius, the 10th of Iron Hands by Ferrus Manus, 12th of World Eaters by Angron, 13th of Ultramarines by Rabute Guilliman, 14th of Death Guard by Mortarion, 15th of Thousand Suns by Magnus the Red, 16th of Lunar Wolves by Horus Lupercal, 17th of Word Bearers by Lorgar Aurelian, 18th of Salamanders by Vulcan, 19th of Raven Guard by Corvus Corax, and 20th of Alpha Legion by Alfarius and Omegon. The 2nd and 11th Legion Primarchs were disposed of sometime after their reunification with the Emperor.
I wonder if they're ever going to elaborate on those even more. I guess potentially the idea is that they were wiped out in a battle against an alien race, or potentially the alien race that they were fighting was some kind of like parasitic race that was able to take over their bodies, and it's rumored that Leman Russ and his Space Wolves had to go in and wipe them out, and thus then, because it was still early enough on in the Crusade and they didn't want to have doubts creep up, the Imperium had the information expunged from history and the records to remove any kind of doubt that the Space Marines and the Primarchs they were essentially infallible beings, great warriors, etc., etc. I think there is something though where there was some kind of video or something that I remember watching. I don't remember which one it was, but there was some kind of a mention of like a prison under the palace on Terra or something like that, some kind of prison on Terra that the Custodes watch over, and in there's a person labeled like 11, I believe. Could potentially indicate that the 11th Primarch is actually in captive down there and is hidden and secreted away, guarded by and watched over by the Custodes. So that could be something that potentially, Games Workshop could elaborate on more in the future. And maybe we would learn more about them. That would be pretty dope. But this is one of the things that I have a lot of questions about. I'd love to learn more about, like, what actually happened. And I think, like, tabletop gameplay wise, they did this so that people can essentially homebrew their own factions, their own legions, chapters, whatever you want to call them. That could be used. That's why they kind of left these two open for that purpose. But I think lore wise, that's the excuse.
However, all information regarding these events was classified or destroyed. In just 200 years, nearly the entire galaxy was united under the banner of the Imperium.
It's pretty crazy, honestly, how quickly it got
Xenos races
done.
Were obliterated or on the run. Only one race was still considered a grave threat: the Orcs. This savage species could muster enormous warhords called Wa under the leadership of their most powerful warlord. In the year 000 M31, the Emperor decided to eliminate the Orcish threat.
Yeah.
He assembled a strike force to destroy the largest Wa in the Ullanor system. The Imperial Army,
the great victory of the Emperor and Horus.
Was composed
this is where
of
Horus was named the War Master.
8 million soldiers of the Imperial Guard, 3 Primarchs, and a contingent of 100,000 Space Marines. Horus Lupercal with the Lunar Wolves, Rabute Guilliman with the Ultramarines, and Jagatai Khan with the White Scars. The last part of the army was Mechanicum-operated war machines. Among them were 100 Titans. They were the biggest Imperial war machines, each one 100 meters tall, capable of mass destruction. The Orc army, under war boss Urlak Urg, was at least 5 times bigger, ranging in between 40 to 50 million soldiers. The Imperial army was split into 2 parts. One, under the command of the Emperor, consisted of all Titans, Ultramarines, White Scars, and the majority of the Imperial Guard. The second one, under command of Horus, consisted of Lunar Wolves, supported by about a quarter of the Imperial Guard. The Emperor led his contingent to attack the outer planets, drawing out most of the orcs from Ullanor.
Interesting, okay. So yeah, he went out to the outer planets to destroy any kind of support lines that could come back and draw them out, and as they chased the Emperor, Horus went in.
Prime, where the war boss resided.
Gotcha.
Taking advantage of the gap in the defenses, Horus's army advanced straight to the capital. Thousands of dropships and drop pods shuttled the army, while heavy gunships deployed tanks and provided air support, surrounding Ulak-Urg's heavily fortified palace. The orcs attacked landing zones, spilling out of the palace, again falling into the trap of leaving important positions. Horus and the first company of Lunar...
See, this is the kind of stuff that I like. I like seeing these like top-down maps where you can see the units and how the strategies and everything really played out and all that kind of stuff. I love videos like this. If you guys have any other, you know, content creators out there that have videos like this that actually talk about the battles and show like these, you know, the strategy and how things were done in a lot of these fights, I would love to watch them. So please hit me up down in the comments and let me know.
Wolves teleported to the base of the main tower where Ulak-Urg resided. He then took his 10 best soldiers to kill the war boss, who was defended by his 40 strongest orcs, the Knobs. Brutal melee combat ensued, where Horus dueled and defeated Ulak, throwing his dying opponent from the tower roof, effectively breaking the morale of the war. Of the 10 Terminators, only one survived, gore-drenched Ezekiel Abaddon, captain of the First Company.
Well.
In the following hours, tens of thousands of orcs stuck between Terminator Space Marines and surrounding forces were slaughtered. Dozens of pretenders claimed the title of war boss, and the place of every claimant was taken by 2 more. Infighting caused more losses among the orcs than the Imperial army.
Yeah.
Methodical massacres done by humanity resulted in the complete eradication of the orcs in Ullanor and all nearby systems in less than a year. Orc losses were so devastating that the Emperor proclaimed the orcs would never again threaten the Empire. In celebration, the entire planet Ullanor Prime was turned into a monument.
Yep.
After a victorious parade in front of the Emperor of Mankind, Malkador, the Regent of Terra, and 16 primarchs, the Emperor surprised everyone by announcing his retirement to Terra. To lead the Great Crusade in his stead, he appointed Horus as a war master.
This is where the Emperor went back to work on the webway.
Soon, more
went back to try to connect Earth to the webway, which was essentially what the Eldar used to traverse instead of the warp, which was also created by the Great Old Ones. You know, like the potential original species that seeded life in the galaxy, and it's essentially, for those that don't know, you know, a safe way essentially of like warp travel, but without having to actually go into the warp. You know, for those who aren't necessarily familiar, whenever you have to travel through great distances, you're entering the immaterium or the warp, which is the realm of chaos, and if you're not protected, all kinds of chaos demons and entities or whatever can get in and attack you and mess you up. And all kinds of timey-wimey, you know, fuckery can happen and all kinds of weird stuff. And the webway essentially negates any of that. It is essentially a safe pocket of like subspace that you can get to and still have the benefit of being able to, you know, warp travel, but in a safe way.
Changes came, and the High Lords of Terra started to administer the Imperium. Armies were forced to carry civilians, such as journalists or propagandists, on board the spaceships. Taxes and levies were to be collected from newly conquered worlds. The dissatisfaction of the primarchs only grew when the Emperor seemingly withdrew from the public eye, not involving himself with any known matters. Tensions were rising between the brothers and the state. In less than a year, legions almost started fighting over the use of psykers. The Council of Nikaea was to determine the future fate of the psykers.
Yep.
The Emperor would pass the final verdict. The abolitionists reminded everyone how psykers led to the destruction of hundreds of worlds, how occultic practices stood against the morals of the Imperium of Man. The defenders of psykers spoke of the overwhelming importance of their powers. Moreover, they reminded everyone that the Emperor was a psyker himself.
True.
The third option.
The other thing is like some of them, like the White Scars, for example, like Jagatai and his White Scars, they have the psychers are a cultural thing for them too. It's not just like a means of how do I want to say, a means of combating things, and you know, just having essentially like another tool, another weapon. To them, they're the psychers, I forget what they were called, but they're essentially like advisors, counselors, sages. They're seen as advisors and are of great cultural significance to Jagatai and his group. And I think Magnus is the same way. I think Magnus, even though he was very arrogant, I think Magnus's Thousand Sons, they had a lot of the psychers and stuff were more of a cultural thing as well as a means to an end for learning than it was just as like a tool or a weapon to be used.
Option was presented by librarians, space marines who were also psychers. Their idea was to centralize the librarians' education under the Emperor's supervision. This offer appeased almost all present. However, the speech of Magnus the Red, the second most powerful psyker after the Emperor, decided the outcome. Full of pride, he spoke about the pursuit of knowledge and how it should never be restricted. Everything that could be learned should be known, as there is no such thing as evil knowledge.
Is it any wonder why he
instructed that illustrious humans should develop the science. He then spoke about Plato's cave, where humanity looked at the shadows, thinking that was reality. In such a place, the one who saw the real world should guide the others to enlightenment. The Emperor was angered at Magnus, as his son, who inherited psychic powers, was blinded by ambition. The Emperor's judgment was to ban psychers,
and arrogance,
seeing that resisting the temptations of the warp is too hard for humans.
The other thing is too, like, and it's interesting, in the first book in the Horus Heresy, Horus Rising, there was a chapter that kind of really stuck out in my mind, where Loken is reading a book that he borrowed from Cinderman, I believe, and it's an old book that talks about a lot of early warlords or earlier warlords on Terra before the Emperor was around, and how they used you know, psychers and were psychers to wage war. And you know, he talks about how all these demon mutations started happening in the battlefield, and you know, biblical kind of things, plagues, curses, and stuff like that were taking place. And so that also like is part of, you know, the Emperor was around and he saw these things and how these things were used and how it corrupted humanity. So that's obviously one of the reasons why the Emperor is biased as to not allowing psychic use, because he knows how easily it can be for humans to fall to the temptations of chaos and the power it offers. And so hearing Magnus's speech, I think, kind of tipped the scales to leaning that way because of that.
The verdict was followed by a threat that severe punishment would follow if any legion broke this law. Magnus had sworn that he would never use psychic powers again, a promise he never intended to uphold. Although the galaxy was again in human hands, cracks had already begun to form. The primarchs were dissatisfied that the Imperium was ruled by the High Lords of Terra, not them. They were to listen to a brother, an equal, not the superior father.
Yeah, that was one of the kind of the, I mean, I feel like through my journey of 40k here, there's a lot of mistakes that kind of crept up that the Emperor made. And I feel like not having a Primarch being a representative in a political means, like, I feel like Rabute Gilliman probably would have been like one of the better ones for that, but having them as like a representative, you know, in more political matters would have made a difference. As opposed to not, and just seeing them as like tools of war. But at the same time, again, I could see the Emperor's view on that of like, that's what they are. They're tools of war, and he wants the political means to be upheld and run by humans, because that is what the Imperium is fighting for, is for humanity to thrive, kind of a situation.
Father, who now stopped involving himself in governing. How will the situation escalate? Find out in the next episode. Our series on the Warhammer 40k Horus heresy will continue, so make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button to see it. Please consider liking, commenting, and sharing.
I guess this is like a
it
part
helps
one.
Immensely. Our videos would be impossible without
I mean, it does say Warhammer 40k number 1.1 documentary.
Kind patrons and YouTube.
So I would assume there's more to go on this series, so we'll probably follow up and continue with the series. I really like this video, actually. This was the first video I've seen from Wizards and Warriors, and yeah, great video. A great, very well presented and kind of condensed version of the history of humanity from when we started out in space up until through the Horus heresy, and kind of really gives the key notes on things and events and people and places that happened that really like progress things to where they are. So very good video, definitely enjoyed it. Definitely gonna give that video a like, and I'm gonna hit the subscribe button here on Wizards and Warriors. So if you would like to do the same, links are down below in the description to the original video without my commentary and reaction, and to Wizards and Warriors channel. So please do me a favor, if you enjoyed this video as I did, go over there and give it a like, and check out the Wizards and Warriors content, and if you enjoy his stuff, give him a sub. If you'd like to join us when I do these reactions live, there is a link down in the description, as well as a join button underneath the video. You can take a look at the YouTube membership tiers and benefits that I offer. You can get early access to videos, priority any kind of requests you might have, sub Discord channel, members Discord channel, I should say, etc., etc. So check a look at that stuff, see if any of it interests you, and if you decide you want to take your support to the channel to the next level, we'll greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, consider leaving a like and a sub, as it helps me and the channel grow. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you're having a wonderful day. We'll see you on the next one.